hey, this might be one of the rare occasions, and probably will be. It may even be the last time I ever do it. It may be the first time. I play a clip, at least one that is not about mocking or anything else, of Senator Amy Klobuchar.
Oh, wow.
She, yesterday we briefly touched on this. There is a government shutdown that is happening, or may happen, I think by Friday. A partial one. There are two tranches, essentially, of like government funding that is on the table. There is a bill in the House that it looks like Mike Johnson has basically come to the other Jesus on this, I guess, and realizing like he's going to have to pass it with Democratic votes in addition to Republican ones, because nobody seems to want a government shutdown. And even if they get the government shutdown, there doesn't seem to be any way to appease the so-called conservatives in the Freedom Caucus who don't want government to even function at all.
And they'll be up in arms when he gets Democratic votes on this.
Yeah, so he's damned if he does, he damns if he doesn't, and he wants to keep his job because now he can open a bank account. But there's a second tranche, and part of that second tranche is the Department of Justice funding. And David Dayen had a piece on this the other day, and now a bicameral group, bipartisan group, 5 lawmakers, not a huge group, but it is a group, are demanding that $45 million that are being cut from the budget, from the Department of Justice Antitrust Division, be reinstated. Here is Amy Klobuchar raising this on the Senate floor. And, well, listen to what she says.
For each agency. For fiscal year 2024, the CBO estimated that the Department of Justice Antitrust Division would earn $278 million under the bill, an increase of $88 million from a year prior. Yet the budget released this week appropriated only $233 million to the Antitrust Division.
All right, pause it for one second. The point is that there has been legislation, she'll mention this, but there's been legislation in the past that says the Department of Justice Antitrust Division can collect fees. It can be self-funding in some, not totally, but it can add to its funding by collecting fees. So in other words, the more enforcement you have,
right,
the more enforcement you will get.
Yep.
Go ahead.
From a year prior. Yet the budget released this week appropriated only $233 million to the Antitrust Division. That's an estimated $45 million in fees that were diverted away from antitrust enforcers. But that's not all. The appropriation reverses decades of precedent, 25 years. It said the overage of fees would go to the Antitrust Division. So if they generate the fees, then they get to have those fees to help hire the lawyers to take on the big companies. That's how it's always worked. One pen, and they changed it. We weren't able to see it ahead of time. We worked with them after some language came out in July. Unbeknownst to us, they just took the money and ran. They took the money and they put it in other parts of the government budget. This appropriation, as I said, reverses how this has been done. So let's just get this straight. Senator Grassley and I changed the law with 88 votes to get more money into that division. And instead, going forward, they're not going to get any of the money. So it almost makes it ridiculous that we tried to help by passing the law, because if we hadn't done anything, then maybe no one would have noticed it, and then the Appropriations Committee wouldn't have taken the money. When Congress acts to increase merger fees or makes a policy decision, I think the Appropriations Committee's job is then to follow that policy decision. The CBO predicts an...
I mean, is that legal? How is that legal for them to be able to just take the funds that were appropriated and then put it somewhere else than it was actually written out in the language?
I can only imagine that maybe that maybe the legislation for the spending ends up superseding that prior legislation. I don't know.
Either way, though, I mean, look, it hasn't been signed into law at this point, but the idea that they can come to some sort of agreement and just put the money elsewhere. Are they even changing the language in their version of the bill?
We'll see. I mean, it's an appropriation. So it is, it's not necessarily, they may be able to collect the fees and maybe the cut comes from somewhere else. I'm not exactly sure.
Yeah, I think sometimes there's like a loophole of almost a reallocation looking like a spending cut. So they've sort of like said, oh, we cut something to the EPA, but that is a cut from like, some sort of discretionary spending, whereas it would be then offset by like a Inflation Reduction Act or bipartisan infrastructure bill offset of other separate money. So
Gotcha.
I think it might be some sleight of hand stuff to advertise it like that, but I think they can sort of, if they can get it by the parliamentarian, I think they will. Yeah.
We'll see. We'll see if hopefully that, the antitrust stuff is one of the highlights of this administration.
Yeah.
And what's happening. So.
And she's a lawyer. I mean, Amy Klobuchar, before she was a senator, was county prosecutor in Minnesota. So I'm sure she's passionate about like the DOJ actually getting funded in this way.